Hi, I'm George Ellison. This is Dave Scott. We're coming from Acme Guitar Works, and we wanted to tell you about this guitar. This is a Fender road-worn Telecaster. We have modified it, but it is a new guitar, and we're a Fender authorized dealer. So this guitar is sold with a full Fender factory warranty, and then of course we cover any of the work that we've done on it, so that the buyer will be fully protected. We've chosen to sell these inexpensive Mexican Fender guitars because we think that they represent a good value. And you know, there are a lot of guitars out there that are $3,000 and $4,000 and $5,000 bucks, but we feel like you should be able to spend you know, $700 to $1,500 and get a really good guitar that plays really well and that sounds great. And that's you know, that's not going to cause problems with your significant other. So anyway, I'm going to tell you what we've done with this guitar, and then Dave's going to demonstrate it, and you'll be able to hear what it sounds like. So these guitars, I really am a fan of the road-worn guitars. I think this road-worn Tele's, the neck shape is really comfortable. They have a 7 1/4 inch fretboard radius, which I particularly like. It's nice and round. It's great for chording. This is the fretboard radius that was on all of the vintage Fenders in the 50s and 60s. And Fender uses it currently on most of the reissue guitars as well. They put nice tall fret wire on these guitars because the originals had smaller fret wire, and a lot of guys that bend a lot want to have taller fret wire. It's easier to bend strings, and so they've already given you that. With this, it's actually Dunlop 6105 wire, so it's at the sort of the high end of the tallness scale. It's pretty tall. So one thing that we've done, though, even though they give you the nice tall frets, is we do a level crown and polish on the frets. Generally speaking, the guitars out of the box don't play as well as they can. We want them to play as well as they possibly can, so we do a fret level crown and polish. Make sure the tops of all the frets are really level with each other, and that way we can get the action as low as possible and make the guitar as comfortable to play as possible. We also, in this guitar's case, we replaced the stock nut with a bone nut, and bone is a harder material. It's a traditional high-end material for making nuts. You don't see it too much on lower-end guitars, but we've made one for this guitar, and then. We've also replaced the saddles on this guitar. I'm going to get to the electronics here in a minute because that's the obvious big change. But the saddles on this guitar, the problem with these 3 saddle bridges is that they don't intonate well. I like these bridges. I've always liked this vintage Tele style, the ashtray bridge. But I don't like the 3 saddles in terms of intonation because you can't intonate them. And so those Teles that have that bridge style always play out of tune, significantly out of tune, unless you put compensated bridge saddles on it. Callahan has a couple of different bridge saddle methods that they employ for compensation. This one has one that they call Enhanced Vintage, and you can't see it, I'm sure, on the camera, but basically the top of each saddle is adjusted so that the 2 strings have slightly different lengths, and that basically makes the difference, so that the guitar plays, you know, you can play chords up and down the neck and they'll all be in tune. It actually intonates very well with these saddles. They come from Callahan looking like a Rolex watch or something. They're beautifully, highly polished, but because it's a road-worn guitar, we put them in a tumbler and we basically take the gloss and make them sort of aged looking. So the guitar plays great. Now let's get to the big change. The big change is we put a humbucker in the neck. You know, a lot of guys have done this over the years. Keith Richards is one of the, you know, the most famous, right, guys that plays an old Blackguard Tele with a humbucker. But most guys that put a humbucker in the neck of a Tele just use a 3-way switch, just a stock switch. And there's sort of a trade-off, a compromise, because what happens is you've got a 250K volume pot from Fender. All of the Fender single coil pickups are voiced with a 250K volume pot. You may not realize the pot value affects the tone of the guitar, but it does. So if we put a 500K pot in this same guitar, it's going to sound brighter. Well, Gibson guitars ship typically with 500K pots. So the PAF humbucker, most of them are voiced with a 500K pot, and so they're going to sound a little dark usually with a Fender 250K pot. So what do? You've got a guitar, a pickup that wants a 500K pot and a pickup that wants a 250K pot, so it's sort of a compromise. In fact, in some cases, Fender splits the difference and ships a guitar with a 375K pot. What we've done instead is we've put our ToneShaper unit in this guitar, and we make this thing called a ToneShaper that basically is a control unit, and it fits right in here in the stock Tele routing. It just attaches to the control plate and then screws on the guitar. It's a set of controls, and we use a 5-way switch with this instead of a 3-way switch. The 5-way switch, we have this other feature built in that when you're in the forward position on the humbucker, you have a 500K pot. So we've used the value that this pickup is voiced with. But the other 4 positions, we use the pot value drops to 250K. So there's no compromise tonally. We sort of accommodate the humbucker and accommodate the other settings optimally. This pickup, this humbucker, is actually made by Lindy Fralin. It's called an unbucker. Again, another problem that when you put a humbucker in a Telecaster, since you're putting in it, if you put it in a neck, you have to use a pretty weak humbucker because you can overwhelm a Tele bridge pickup pretty easily with a higher output humbucker. It just can't hang, and so you need to use a lower output humbucker. But then, if you want to split the humbucker to get any sort of single coil tones, well, it's just sounds a little thin. And so what Fralin does is he makes this unbucker, and it's got a strong coil and a weak coil. As a humbucker, it's about a 7K humbucker, and that's all the way forward. It's a humbucker. But when we come back one position, we split the humbucker. Now it's a true single coil, but the coil that remains on is stronger than it would typically be with a regular humbucker. So it better mimics a Tele neck pickup. Sounds more like a true Fender single coil. When we come back one more position, we're back to a humbucker here, but now we're combining it with the bridge. One more, and we split this pickup again. Now we've got a single coil again, combined with the Tele bridge. So that's kind of like a Telecaster in the middle position where you get a single coil neck and a single coil bridge. And then all the way back is just the bridge single coil. So that's a lot to maybe digest, but it's pretty unique, and we've done this exact setup on a bunch of Telecasters, and they just fly out the door. A lot of guys think it's a really cool modification. I personally think it's a real cool modification, and Dave is going to demo it so you can really hear what that humbucker sounds like. It's really full and big sounding.
Well, let's start with that. Full humbucker, all the way, all the way up.
Single coil neck.
Go back one more. Now it's humbucker single.
Correct.
And if we go back one more, now it's single single.
Correct.
sounds like a traditional Tele in that position. And then bridge pickup.
Right.
We'll gain it up a little, see what it does. You want to hear it pulled back a bit?
No, that's good.
Let's hear it a little gained up. That's a meaty single coil.
Is that the bridge? Or is that the neck?
That's the bridge.
Bridge.
Neck humbucker.
Do some sort of neck humbucker rhythm stuff.
Heavy like that? Heavy
Yeah,
gain?
yeah. single coil, do like ZZ Top. Yeah.
It does sound like a traditional single coil. You wouldn't know. You wouldn't know that was a humbucker. I guess the way he does that with that hotter coil, he does it.
Yeah.
And maybe the pots as well is the way you're talking how it goes. That's
Yeah, exactly. I mean, well, in
normally,
that position,
normally you'd split a humbucker, but you'd still have it on a 500K pot, right?
well, yeah, if you're like in a Les Paul or an SG or something, right?
But here, once you go to that, it instantly goes to a 250.
250. Right.
Nice.
So that's a guitar. It may not be available when you see this video, but we always have guitars like this available. So check out our website, and you will find out what we currently have. And then, of course, there are more available, so we can hot rod one just the way you want it. Give us a call or send us an email. Thanks a lot.